welcome to the XL Sports Network College Football Drive at 5, brought to you by the Steakhouse Restaurant in Hawkinsville. And we're coming to you live from the David Venable Studios in Hawkinsville. Also, today's episode is brought to you by the Williams Mobile Welding. You can get a hold of Williams Mobile Welding at, hold on, let me get the phone number, 478-258-4494. Or you can visit them online at WH Williams at Williams Mobile Home. Let me try to get this straight, guys. I'm sorry. And I hope if he's listening to you, I'm sorry, WH, I'm butchering this up. So let me try this again. The website is WilliamsMobileWeldingLLC.com. That's WilliamsMobileWeldingLLC.com. And you can email him at whwilliams@williamsmobilewelding.com. That's Williams Mobile Welding. Just talk to WH. WH is a great guy. Very accurate. He's done some stuff for us at our farm. He's got a mobile welding thing. He'll bring his truck over to do welding for you. He's great. He'll bring you right when you need him. Very accurate. Great welder. Great guy. He's very honest, and that's what I like.
Does he do aluminum?
Does he do aluminum? You know, I don't know. I tell you what, he'll probably text me that answer. I'm not sure. The guy's good, though. I'm gonna tell you that right now. The guy is good. But W.H. Williams is the CEO and the owner, and Williams Mobile Welding, and we'll do another shout out here in the next after the next break. Anyway, guys, we're coming to you live from the David Venable Studios. We're here with Will Nobles, my buddy. My son-in-law, and my man Ken Parks on the boards. I'm Chuck Ferguson, and we're going to do some college football today. Will, man, kind of some stuff we were talking about on the way in. I'll turn it over to you and let you go ahead and get started with what you want to talk about.
All right, well, I got to start here. This is my guy, so I got to start here. Saw a news article came out, I believe it was today. Nope, today's the 4th? Yep, yesterday the 3rd. Apparently, and I quote, Scott Frost is dying to have a chance to coach again. And my response, he's going to have to die then. He's not getting a head coaching job.
I think there's a women's flag football position open at, not sure where, Brooks County, Illinois maybe, or somewhere, I'm not sure.
After that last year in Nebraska, I don't think he's qualified to coach that team.
Really?
Based on what I saw. I called for him to get fired the year before that. Like we talked about, you said they're the best 3-9 team ever, and I'm like, yeah, that's not saying very much.
I tell you what, the onside kick against Northwestern,
I think they would have hired him right there if they could.
That was
but he had to ride on the plane with everybody back from Ireland, so it would have been too awkward. So
I think they had like an 11-point lead at that point, and
I believe so. Yeah.
Why would you give somebody a short field out of it?
No, just had to start there. Go ahead and get that out the way. I thought that was funny.
I still like the guy though. I'm sorry, Will. I saw him play when he was in college, and I'm not a Nebraska fan, but my goodness, man, that guy was a great quarterback in college, and I know what he did there at UCF, and their self-proclaimed national championship. I was really hoping that he would do a lot better at Nebraska, so it's kind of disappointing. Maybe one day he'll get another shot.
I think first he needs to get a coordinator job somewhere, or a position coach job somewhere. I kind of think it was one of those situations where he went too high too fast, and he wasn't prepared for it. I think that was a really good UCF team. I don't think they were national champions, so sorry Golden Knights fans out there, but and it was one of those situations where your alma mater needs a new coach, and you just happen to have a good season, so they hire you. And I don't think he was ever right for that job, but there's a chance he'll get a chance to coach again.
Well, let's talk just a little bit about Nebraska. I think Nebraska's going to be a team that I think Matt Rhule is really going to turn that program around, and I think we're probably going to see that maybe this year. We'll talk about that later, but one thing about Nebraska is you're not going to get a whole lot of talent that you need to play at that level in Nebraska, so you got to go outside Nebraska. And Tom Osborne was really good about recruiting Florida, especially North Florida. That's where he got Tommy Frazier and won 2 national championships with Tommy Frazier. And I'm telling you, that team was a good team, but they weren't from Nebraska.
Yeah, no, it's tough to find homegrown talent out there in that tiny area. That is the actual plains of the country. It's just not huge on football producing prospects out there. It's just the way it's always been.
Exactly. What else got?
Another kind of minor note that I thought was interesting, not super super exciting. We'll get into the meat of the show in a little bit, but Warren Sapp is joining the Colorado coaching staff as a graduate assistant.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting because defense, especially defensive line, was a big issue they had. And if he can help coach those guys up, maybe they can play some better defense, because the past 2 years that defense has been one of the worst ones, if not the worst in the country. I think a bigger concern is offensive line. And somebody told me today, actually one of my coworkers said that he saw a video from spring practice of how a defensive lineman or defensive end got in the backfield really quickly. And I was like, well, that's not super comforting to think about for Colorado going forward. But yeah, if they can fix up some offensive line and defensive line issues, Colorado may have a chance to do some damage in the new Big 12.
I'll tell you what, if Warren Sapp brings the same intensity as a coach as he did as a player, ooh, man, watch out. I'm not sure I want to be out there running drills with that guy, because he might put a helmet on and hurt somebody out there.
He just might. Yeah, my dad was a big Bucs fan, so I grew up watching Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I'm very familiar with Warren Sapp and his ability to do damage. He was a force, no doubt.
He was a force in college at Miami too.
Oh yeah.
What else you got?
All right, so you said you wanted to talk about that idea floating around very recently about the idea of some kind of super league. It is an idea of an idea at this point, and I don't know that it's going to progress any farther. We'll see. I think so far the only people that have really even entertained it, there's some ADs or commissioner or something in the ACC.
Right.
So
I think the SEC and the Big Ten today.
And that's why I don't think it's ever going to gain any real momentum, because with the teams joining those two conferences and the two teams that are currently trying to leave the ACC, I think the ACC has less power than the probably MAC right now.
Right.
Obviously an exaggeration there, but you know they're
too much.
They're not what they used to be in terms of being a, I guess, important conference. I don't know that they ever were as big as the SEC, but they're definitely falling off. So like I said, the concept is interesting. I believe it's 7 divisions. Well, they said they're going to take the top 70 teams.
Right.
I don't know how they determine that, but I think it's mostly the Power 4 now. I guess we're officially calling it.
Well, they said it was all the teams from former Power 5 programs, plus SMU that just came into the
inclusion of SMU is curious to me, but I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
And then obviously Notre Dame and go ahead.
Yeah, so a lot of the teams from the Power 4 conferences are going to be in that 70 teams that get split up into 7 10-team divisions. And I would just have to assume that those would be geographically separated.
That sounds awfully like what we just came out of about
Sounds
2 years ago.
crazy like conferences to me, but you know.
Can't call them that, can't call them divisions, can't call them conferences, you gotta call them whatever.
But again, I have always been a supporter of that. I like the regionality of conferences because it really emphasizes the rivalries.
Yep.
I mean, like I said, Georgia and Ohio State, that'll be a great game to watch, but it's never going to be a rivalry, you know.
It may be a hated matchup because of just the recent history, but you're right. It's not. It don't have a long-standing rivalry like Georgia, Auburn, or
Alabama, Michigan. Great game. It's never going to become a rivalry.
Yeah.
Well, the rivalries are born of, I guess, the closeness there. I mean, there probably are rivalries of teams that are 1-2 states apart or maybe across the country, but the majority of them are either in-state or bordering state rivalries. You don't hardly ever see. You hardly ever see rivalries that happen, like I said, 6-7 states apart. It just usually doesn't happen.
Right.
So
Notre Dame's probably one of those exceptions. You know, they have
because they're an independent.
Because they're independent, and then their big rival all those years was USC. Back in the day, actually,
Stanford.
they played. Stanford. But they also played Ohio State and Michigan every year too, and that was back until they stopped playing those guys.
Yeah.
Those were big games, big rivalries.
Oh yeah. So again, that's one thing I do like about this is they bring back some regionality, which again, I'm a big supporter of that because I think having Stanford in the Atlantic Coast Conference is bonkers. Having the University of California, Berkeley, in the Atlantic Coast Conference is bonkers.
Both of those schools can throw a rock in the Pacific Ocean.
forgive me, I just think that's a little wild.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
And this is something you tossed around before, and I think it's fun. The idea of relegation for teams, I think that would be really, really interesting because then they have something to play for. Not only are you playing for a national championship, but you're playing to stay where you're at.
Right.
Because if you don't, you may fall off.
Yeah, that's like the Premier League in Europe soccer.
Yep.
Yeah, you don't want to finish in the bottom because you're going to drop down to that. In this case, we would call it a group of 5, and if you're the top of the group of 5, let's just say if somebody won it, they would move up into the Power 5 division.
Yep. So again, back to how that was working. So it's going to be eight divisions. They said 7 of them will be the 10 teams of. Sorry, the 10 teams split into 7 divisions from the 70 that they're keeping, and then the other 50, what would it be, 54 or so this next year would be, no, 64? I don't know, something to that effect, 50 or 60 teams. The, I guess, higher seeded, or the best producing ones out of that, they get to fill in that last 10 team, that 8-10 team division, and as those teams play, they get to, the winner of that division goes on to play in a playoff game, and I guess losers obviously get relegated, winners move up. I don't know how exactly that would work to determine who falls and who comes up, but I do think that's an interesting concept. Again, it's fun, but like I said, this is an idea of an idea at best. I think this is years away from even getting off the ground, because like we said, if the SEC and the Big Ten aren't even entertaining it right now, it's not going to go anywhere. And also, like I said, you have TV rights that are done with, I think, ESPN from through like 2030. So that
I was just getting ready to say that. That's really the big.
Those TV deals aren't going anywhere.
Well,
you got to see them out.
The biggest hurdle or the biggest, pushing force behind this is going to be what, because I mean, guys, this, now the TV deals are just billions.
Oh yeah,
it's in the billions and billions of dollars.
Especially for those 2 conferences, the Big Ten and the SEC.
Yeah. I mean, each teams of those, the SEC and the Big Ten are getting, I forget how much it is now, $30 or $40 million a year.
Enjoy it, Vanderbilt.
Yeah, exactly.
You're welcome.
Yeah. One reason why Vanderbilt would never leave the SEC unless somebody forced them out.
Nah, I wouldn't mind it.
Yeah.
And another thing that I don't know how I feel about it, but I know how I feel about doing away with a playoff committee. So it would be, like I said, we have 8 divisions, and if I remember it correctly, it's 8 divisions. The winner of each division is an automatic lock to the playoff, and you have 8 at-large wildcard teams. I like the idea of doing away with the playoff committee because I think they've gotten a lot of stuff wrong. There's been several decisions, like this year was easy for the top 2 teams, I think. And then obviously 3 through 5 or 6 got a little messy, but I mean, the top 2 teams went to the national championship, the number 1 team won. So all in all, it kind of, came out the wash. The 2 years before that, you had Georgia, and I think they were leaps and bounds ahead of everyone 2 years ago. I'm sorry, I guess 2022, yeah, 2 years ago. But the other time they won it, was Georgia and Alabama in there. So I think every year the best team has won it. I don't think there's ever been a time where it's like, a team got left out that should have won the whole thing. I don't think it's ever happened, but just around the margins, like I said, FSU this year, I mean, that was, I don't know how that happened, and for something like this, it wouldn't happen, because, if a team goes undefeated in their division and they win it, they're going to be in. So there's less, I guess, debate about who should be with that stuff, and I think the wild card would work off like win precision stuff too. So taking the playoff committee out of it, I mean, it makes for good drama and good TV on a Tuesday night because there's nothing else to do, but but I don't know that it's a very fair way, I guess, like I said, for teams like FSU, because a lot of those people in those meetings, they're supposed to recuse themselves of certain discussion, or they're supposed to leave their bias at the door, but they never do. I mean, when you have athletic directors in there and the decisions they make directly impact the money their school makes, they can't be objective. It's impossible.
Exactly. I got an idea. Bring back the BCS and just have a 12-team playoff in the top.
The
top 12 teams of the BCS.
I don't think the BCS was ever broken.
No, I don't think so either. I just need, the BCS instead of top 2, top 4, run 1, 4, 2, 3 would have been fine for me.
And the other thing about it, obviously, is the playoff would expand, I believe, under that system to 16 teams. And that's a little crazy, because if you have 80 teams competing for 16 spots, and right now you have 130, it's not actually 130, obviously, they all can't make it, but competing for 12 spots, that's yeah. Again, I don't think it's a perfect system, but it has some interesting ideas, and I think it would be fun to do some of them. So.
Up against the break, Will. Listen to the XL Sports Network, College Football Drive at 5. And we are brought to you by the Steakhouse Restaurant in Hawkinsville, and we're coming to you live from the David Venable Studios in downtown Hawkinsville. Be back in 3 minutes, y'all. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the XL Sports Network, College Football Drive at 5. We are brought to you by the Steakhouse Restaurant in Hawkinsville. I think Thursday nights are, is that how they're right? Don't they have seafood on Thursday night?
No, it's a Thursday night buffet.
Thursday night buffet. Man, I'm telling you, hey, it doesn't matter what day of the week it is, man, they are awesome. So visit the Steakhouse Restaurant in Hawkinsville, let Lewis and the gang meet your needs there. And if you guys have any kind of church functions or anything you guys want to do there, they can do that too. Have big rooms and they can have you some parties and stuff. We're coming to you from the David Venable Studios in downtown Hawkinsville. A shout out to, we'll try this again, to Williams Mobile Welding. Williams Mobile Welding out of Bon Air, Georgia. And W.H. Williams is the guy there. He can be reached at 478-258-4494. You can also visit him online at williamsmobileweldingllc.com. And he can come to you, or you can bring your stuff to him. He's got a shop. I just looked at it yesterday. Tell you something about Mr. W.H. Williams. His young man is very, very honest. I've known his family my whole life. Good family. He's a hard-working young man, and he's honest, and he's very good. He's a very good welder. So if you guys have any welding needs, CWH, and like I said, the phone number 478-258-4494. Williams Mobile Welding. All right. Also, you guys, if you guys want to check us out on our YouTube channel, you can check us at the XLSportsNetwork.net, and you can listen live there, or you can go to YouTube and just type in XL Sports Network, and you can check us out on YouTube. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, make a comment. I'll tell you what, I'll make a deal with you guys out there. If you guys make a comment on there and you want to call into the station, we'll somehow touch base. We'll get in touch with you, and I'll let you guys call in, and we can talk about whatever you want to, as long as it's college football oriented. Talk about whatever you want to talk about on the radio. And man, we love it. No matter who your team is, we're Georgia fans, but man, we love college football in general, and we'll talk about college football with anybody. So we'll love to have you guys call in. All right, well, back to what you got here. Let's go ahead and keep going. What you got?
All right, so I shared this with my family this past week. I've been toiling over this for several months, and I figured it was finally time to pull the trigger.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Speaking of, if anybody's watching and wants to leave a comment, you can have something to say about this.
Oh, yeah,
hey,
I love it. Here we go.
I love it. Controversy brings in views, and that's not why I'm doing it, but hey, it is what it is. So
wait, do we need to say
So the past 2 years, I've made you can call it way too early SEC upset pick.
And he was right on both of them.
I've either gotten lucky or I'm a genius, but it's probably closer to lucky. And this year, again, I usually make it around February, March, but again, we're into April now, so I figured it was about time. And I'll no more delay, I'll just jump right into it. On November 2nd, I've got the Ole Miss Rebels losing to Pig Sooie, the Arkansas Razorbacks. And again, at face value, that sounds kind of crazy, but let me walk you through where I'm at. Every year, a team that's supposed to be good isn't. I think it's been how long that a team has started ranked in the top 10 and finished unranked. And I'm not saying Ole Miss is going to do that, but again, there's teams that are supposed to be good that aren't. I think they'll be preseason top 10. They watch out, they might be preseason top 5. I don't know if they'll get that much love, but I would not be shocked. The past, let's say, 4 years, because that's how long Lane Kiffin's been there, since 2020, the series is 2-2. And the 2 wins that Ole Miss has are by a combined 8 points. Arkansas has not lost in Fayetteville since 2008, I believe. They lost in Little Rock in 2012, but that's not Fayetteville. They're playing in Fayetteville. And interesting, notes about Lane Kiffin. At home, he's 21-5. On the road, he's 10-8. Against top 25 teams, he's 7-8. So they better pray to God Arkansas is not ranked when they go to play them. And the last two upsets that I've picked have been road games in November, and that's when it's tough to win in the SEC. So
Talk about those two, just so we can get historical,
two years ago, I said that Florida was going to lose to Vanderbilt,
which was insane to think about.
and that's when Florida began their losing streak, and then it hit Vanderbilt, and when they actually lost that game, I think it was about the middle of the third quarter, I was like, they could actually lose this game, and they did, and I was very excited. And then last year, I don't know if it was as hot of a take, but I predicted Mizzou to beat Tennessee, and I got a few funny looks when I said that one too, but I thought Tennessee was going to take a step back after losing the offensive juggernauts they had. And I thought Mizzou would take a step forward. I've even got a note here in my notebook. I did not have high praise, but I said Mizzou could surprise, and they did. They even surprised me.
Okay.
So again, it's lucky or good, we'll find out. But
This is coming off like a 7-6 season or 6-7 season.
I think they were right at 6-6 or 7-6.
Yeah,
but it wasn't anything impressive.
Right, and then Tennessee was like what 11-2 that year.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But here's another huge reason that I think they have a good shot of losing this game. So here's the schedule surrounding that Arkansas game. They go on the road to LSU. They come home to play Oklahoma. They're on the road at Arkansas, and the week after that they're home against Georgia. That is a trap game if I've ever seen one. They're coming off of two tough games that are going to be against LSU and Oklahoma. Very likely. Again, we don't know what this team's going to look like, but very likely two tough games. Maybe looking ahead to Georgia, especially if they're undefeated at that point. But again, like I said, it's a road game. Tough to win on the road in the SEC, and it's a road game in November, and that's a tough situation because again, by then you don't know who's hurt, you don't know who's healthy. I have no idea what Arkansas is going to look like next year, and I think a wild card like that could be scary. So. If I'm wrong, you can laugh in my face, that's fine, I'll stand on it. But I think it is a worthwhile pick, and just to show that I'm not super biased, again, I've been, I guess, picking on Ole Miss for a while, and that's fine, but just so I'm not super biased, Florida fans out there, I am flirting with the idea of picking you guys to beat LSU on the 16th, so stay tuned. So I might be picking that one soon, but yeah. November 2nd, Ole Miss goes to Fayetteville and gets knocked off by Arkansas.
Just to finish up on that, we don't know what the Arkansas coaching situation will be at that point. It could be that everyone knows that the beloved Sam Pittman may be struggling to keep his job. His kids may say, you know what, we want to keep him around because I think that if you know Sam Pittman, you're gonna probably love the guy anyway. But at that point, it could be looking like hey, we got to win so we keep our coach. Things happen. So anyway, all right. So moving on to the next subject, we got. I'll tell you what. Let's go ahead and jump into a little bit, or if you got something else before we don't jump into that, because we got about 3 minutes before we go start a commercial here.
Okay. Question for you. We can jump into this one. We kind of talked about it earlier, but if Ohio State has a great quarterback this year, I think they're going to semi-replicate what they did last year in every other position. Obviously, they're not going to duplicate Marvin Harrison, but I think they're going to get adequate production, or I guess comparable production from almost every other position. If they get good quarterback play, how well do you think they can do this year?
Funny you ask that question because I think one of the next subject we're going to talk about, and I'll just go and let the cat out of the bag a little bit here. We're going to talk about the 10 players that are turning heads at spring practice right now.
Yeah, the Bleacher Report.
One of them, right, off this report, and one of them is an Ohio State freshman. You're talking about you can't replace Marvin Harrison. They may.
He's going to try.
Yeah, they may. He's going to try. He's being compared to Julio Jones, which to me is almost insane to think
high
about.
praise.
Yeah, that is. But we'll talk about him in just a minute. You asked me a question on the way over here, and I had never really thought about it, but you asked me if last year the 2023 Ohio State Buckeyes had Carson Beck as their quarterback, what would have been their record? How would that season have turned out? They may have been 15-0. and you know, I go back and look at the Michigan game, which I was at, and you know, they had 2 interceptions in that game, critical interceptions in that game, and you know, so I think with a great quarterback, and I think that Carson Beck was borderline great last year. Very, no doubt he was a lot better than what they had.
Oh yeah.
You know, they would have been. They may have won the whole thing. May have gone undefeated, won the whole thing.
I would tend to agree with that too, because they were in close games that should have been close because of a quarterback. That Notre Dame game, Notre Dame played well, but if they had, again, not trying to be a Georgia homer here, but if they had Carson Beck level production from Kyle McCord last year, I think they would have been an insane team to stop, and that is with that great defense they had in Marvin Harrison Jr. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. by himself willed them to that win over Penn State. And I think if you have a lot more accurate passing, they can probably find a way to pull away in that Michigan game, because that was a very, very close game up until, I guess, the beginning of the fourth quarter or into the third is around where Michigan kind of took a 2-score lead. If I'm remembering correctly, I may not be, but that really thing that ended it, because Michigan had a shot to win it there at the end, and then Kyle McCord threw an interception.
Okay.
You can argue about that first one he threw, whether it was a pick or not. I think it was a great play, but the game ended essentially on a Kyle McCord interception.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
if they have good quarterback play, I think they're going to be real scary. That's the only question mark I have for them, though, and why I think Oregon may be a little bit better. But if Will Howard can do something, you know, if one of the freshmen is starting, Aaron Nolan or Julian Sayin, you never know. I am not a huge believer in Devin Brown or Klein Holt. That's just me because I watched that Mizzou Bowl game. So if Will Howard can be what he can be, or is what he can be, I think the sky's the limit for Ohio State, and I think they'll finally, after 3 years, get another win against Michigan too. Because, man, if this year they do not beat Michigan, there's going to be some shakeups happening in the front offices and the head coaching positions and all that with Ohio State come probably the day after that game. If they lose it, there's going to be a whole lot of shakeup coming that way.
Especially since Ohio State is, well, especially since Michigan has lost everything they lost, including the head coach. You know, you go back and look at Will Howard's his stats from 2023. Right quick before we take this commercial break. 61% completion record. He had 24 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, and that's with you know, that's with Kansas State. So, and you can also listen to us live on the XLSportsNetwork.net. Hit the listen live button. You can also check us out on the YouTube channel, XL Sports Network. YouTube, hit the like, hit the subscribe, and leave us a comment if you guys want to be on the air. Leave me some information how to get in touch with you, and we'll definitely get you on the air. Also, just a shout out to again W.H. Williams at Williams Mobile Welding. You can see W.H. for any of your welding needs. And his phone number is, let me get back to it if I can find it, 478-258. Help me out here, Will. What was it? I lost it. 258-4494. So that's 478-258-4494. And any welding needs that you need, check out WH. And Will, we're going to get into another subject here. I'll let you bring it up. There's anything you want to talk about before we get there?
Nope, that was it. Just
Okay. All right, so we're going to talk about a little something here. Being spring practice. Most schools right now are having spring practice. Some schools have already completed spring practice. And found an article yesterday on the 10 players that are turning heads in spring practice. And it's kind of, there were some true freshmen. There were some veteran players that hadn't played yet, hadn't had the opportunity to showcase their talents. But we're going to jump right into it. I'm going to start off with the first one, and that's Tennessee safety and punt returner Boo Carter, high school kid from Chattanooga, Tennessee. You know, the Vols lost a lot of secondary last year. A lot of opportunities for people to come in and earn starting positions in the Tennessee secondary, and so apparently Mr. Carter, Boo Carter, is turning some heads there. He's likely going to play the star position on defense, but he also could be a wide receiver threat as well. He is also expected to be the punt returner, and a lot of pressure put on a true freshman being a punt returner, because especially at the SEC level, because man, I'm telling you, the guys coming down the field, it ain't like high school. You can't simulate the size and speed of the SEC guys coming down, in high school. So it's going to be kind of scary. But what you think about that, Will? Have you looked at any kind of, or you heard any buzz about Boo Carter?
Truth be told, I'm surprised he's not playing receiver. They may just need help in the secondary, but from what I saw, he seemed to be a much better playmaker on the offensive side of football. And if they do have him back there returning, he's definitely a playmaker, and explosive returners can be game breakers. Just ask Texas A&M last year when Tennessee played them. That punt return for a touchdown in the third quarter was the difference in that football game.
Absolutely was. So y'all be listening out and watching out for Boo Carter. I can't wait till the season starts, man. Some of these players, I'm gonna keep this. I'm gonna keep these notes I got here. I'm gonna be looking closely at these guys. We may bring these guys back up on later shows. The next one, and guys, listen, I know a couple of them, the first few of them are going to be SEC players, but trust me, this article is not an SEC Hallmark article. It goes across the country, so y'all just listen to these. The next one's Auburn wide receiver Cam Coleman, also a true freshman from Phoenix City. He's listed at 6'3", 188 pounds. He was committed to Jimbo at Texas A&M before he flipped to Auburn after Jimbo got fired.
Probably a good call.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know, man. I mean, if you like the school, I mean, you might like who's taking over. I think we talked about this, Mike Elko. That might be a better opportunity than it was before. But we'll see. He's big, he's fast, and he's already taken reps for the first team, which is really, really, really cool. Hugh Freeze says he's really excited about him. It's when you start recruiting kids, you gotta pump your heads up. But then Kirby always says that once you get them on the roster and get them out there practice, you got to almost deprogram them or reprogram them and kind of de-recruit them, because now they go out there and they think they're the top dog, and guess what? You got 4 or 5 guys in front of you who's really the top dog. But apparently this guy's taking reps with the first team. So at Auburn, Auburn's not a place that that's a place where if you're a true freshman taking first team reps, man, you must be something special.
Only reason I say it may have been a good call is because I expect at some point, maybe before this season, they get a transfer, or next year that Auburn gets a good quarterback. Because who they have right now, good gracious, I don't know that Peyton Thorne could hit water inside a boat. But I do expect Texas A&M to run the ball a lot more too next year. And again, like I said, Peyton Thorne is a more running threat than passing threat.
You mean Auburn, not Texas A&M?
No, I expect Texas A&M to run the ball. So
you're saying that's why he flipped. Okay, I understand.
I expect him to run the ball a lot more, so he may not get as many passes.
Yeah.
But again, that's kind of tough to say that Auburn's a better decision, since Peyton Thorne can't really throw very well. But again, I expect they may be pulling some transfer interest after spring, and also next year they'll probably have a good quarterback come in. Did you know that last year Auburn did not have a single receiver that caught for over 400 yards?
Wow. That doesn't surprise me.
400.
That doesn't surprise me.
What
was their team passing total last night?
I couldn't tell you. It was probably under 2,000 yards though.
That's
insane. It was crazy. Like I said, I looked at it today. They did not have one receiver with over 400 yards. Cam Coleman can get to the 1,000 yards, if not more, for sure. He's a talent.
Well, who's going to throw to him?
Again, that's what I said. They're going to get a transfer. They're going to get somebody recruiting next year. I'm not saying this year. Because going from less than 400 over 1,000, that'd be a huge jump again, especially with Peyton Thorne back there on the football. This is not meant to be a hate on Peyton Thorne, but I don't think he's a good quarterback. But
stop. You're saying that you think he can hit the 1,000-yard receiving in 25, not 24.
With a different quarterback, he could do it in 24 with a different quarterback. Yeah. Not with Peyton Thorne. Well, I tell you what, if Peyton Thorne looks like an actual quarterback, then yes, he could probably do it. But until he resembles something that looks like a quarterback, especially in the SEC, no. But like I said, Cam Coleman he's a great guy. He's got some raw talent, size, physical speed. Excuse me. I think he's going to be a great receiver in the SEC for the next few years.
Yes, please forgive us this coughing and sneezing, and if you see us on YouTube, and they're all, man, these allergies are killing us. killing us here. You know, all you folks that are out there in the Northwest or listening to us or watching us, man, you guys don't know what it's like down here in the South, man. It gets terrible down here. So moving along, the next one, again, SEC, Georgia outside linebacker, Joseph John Ajayi. He was highly recruited. He's 6'4", 275, and has Athens buzzing, from what I understand. Kirby Smart tries to downplay a lot of these freshmen. Like I said, you know, he tries to de-recruit them once he gets them on the roster, and you know, he makes comments like, you know, freshmen don't come in here, especially on the defensive line. Freshmen don't come in here and dominate. And you know, I know one that did, and he's playing with the Philadelphia Eagles right now, Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter came in the first rep of the first drill in the fall camp and destroyed an all SEC offensive lineman as an 18-year-old freshman. So it can happen. Joseph Jonah Ajayi is apparently he's turning some heads. A lot of excitement around this guy. He was you know, there was two of those guys came out of the same school in Texas. I think it's out of Conroe, Texas, or somewhere like that. Somewhere out in Texas. Anyway, two of them came in, and it was him and one of the linebackers. I have to go back and look at it. Yeah, I think it was Johnny that had like a 4.5 GPA. Incredibly smart kid. But anyway, have you been able to you know, read anything on Johnny?
I tell you, I don't know who put Joseph Jonah Ajayi as a outside linebacker at 6'4" and 275. That is nuts. I think he can be a defensive tackle, defensive end.
Trayvon Walker was.
He was not an outside linebacker. He played defensive tackle, hybrid type. If you got this guy,
he dropped back in coverage.
I know he did some. That's just the defensive scheme they run. But this guy is not an outside linebacker. There's no shot. He was recruited as a defensive lineman.
Well, it's funny too, because my notes I put in my notes DL, and then I looked at it and it said LLB. I'm like,
maybe they know something, I don't know. But having that guy in an outside linebacker, man, if he could do that, that'd be amazing. I do think he's going to be a good pass rusher, and I think Georgia's been looking for that since they've lost some of their great pass rushing talent here recently. Like I said, I got really excited when he committed last summer. Seeing that name pop up for a Georgia commit was awesome. You know, Kirby's looking to just bolster that elite defense to get even better. You know, depth is essential. We've seen that. I think he's got a great motor. Like you said, he's a smart kid. And if he can be as good a pass rusher as I think he can be, I think he can be what Georgia was missing last year. I think they were missing elite top 10 guy in their front seven last year, because they had that in 2021. Right. They had probably 6 or 7 in their front seven in 2021, and then last year, obviously, they had Jalen Carter and all those guys. If they can get another elite marquee talent back in that front seven, or have some other guys step with linebacker too, I think Georgia's defense can get back to what it was. Not that it was bad last year, but it definitely wasn't near as good as it was in 2021.
I did hear today that apparently the Georgia offensive line in spring practice has been handling that defensive line pretty well. But then again, we're not going to make this a Georgia show, but then again, I've also realized that this Georgia offensive line may be the best that it's ever been this year.
That's crazy.
It may be the best that it's ever been. All right, we're going to take another commercial break. You are listening to the XL Sports Network College Football Drive at 5. We are brought to you by the Steakhouse Restaurant in Hawkinsville. Coming to you live from the David Venable Studios in downtown Hawkinsville. 3 minutes. You guys stay tuned. Be right back. Welcome back to the XL College Football Drive at 5. The Steakhouse Restaurant in Hawkinsville. And coming to you from the David Venable Studios in downtown Hawkinsville. And this last quarter of this episode is being brought to you by Williams Mobile Welding. So Williams Mobile Welding. Check out them on call WH for any of your welding needs. 478-258-4494. Tell them that you heard about us. I heard about them on the XL Sports Network. All right, Will, we're going to get back into what we're talking about. I just want to kind of clarify something I said a minute ago about Joseph John Ajayi. He's from Conroe, Texas, and he came in with Justin Williams, who's also one of his high school teammates, who's also a linebacker. And I think that you're right. They have him listed as a defensive lineman in the recruiting profile, but the article I read had him an outside linebacker. So You're probably right. Probably going to be a defensive lineman, maybe an edge rusher, but regardless, he's turning some heads. So moving along to the next one is Florida State running back Jalen Lucas. He's a transfer from Indiana. Indiana did have a transfer that went somewhere else. Let's see, maybe Washington, and did pretty well up there. Probably going to be a first-round draft pick, and
hopefully we'll see. I've heard people put him all over the place, but that's my guy, Michael Penix. I hope he does go in the first round. I think he was the best quarterback in college football last year, but that's just my opinion.
Definitely led his team to the brink of a national championship and almost won it. Anyway, Jalen Lucas, running back, Florida State. One of the things they say about him is he's great at catching the ball out of the backfield. So that's a good weapon to have. That's an extension of your running game when you can throw those little swing passes, get that guy out in the open, get some people to miss. He's also going to be a weapon on special teams. And Florida State, I don't think there's going to be much of a letdown. Now the quarterback situation, we'll see what happens there. And it's really, let's just face it, man. Last year, I know that everything they said about losing the quarterback is the reason why they go to the playoff and all that. I still have a different opinion on it, but anyway, regardless, it's going to be really tough to replace that Jordan Travis quarterback. Depending on how well they played the quarterback position, Florida State may not have much of a letdown from last year.
I don't expect a letdown. I think DJ has proven that he can do what we thought he couldn't do that second year at Clemson. I think Oregon State was good for him last year and good to him. I think he learned a lot, learned about himself, learned how to play within a system and not try to do too much. But Jalen Lucas, man, I think he's going to have most of his utility within the return game. He's a really small guy. Could be kind of, an injection of energy, come in and do some kind of trick plays or something like that. But I think it's more of a depth piece. They still got Toafili and Roydell Williams ahead of him in my book. So I think he's going to be more likely in the special teams. He's going to have an impact.
Move along to the next one. Now we're getting outside of the footprint. This is right here. We're going to talk about the USC, the Southern California quarterback, Jaden, and you got to help me with this last name.
Jaden Mayava.
There you go. He originally he was committed. Well, he played at UNLV under Barry Odom, they had a great season last year, and he did really good out there. Was the Mountain West Freshman of the Year last year. Big kid, 6'4", 220. He's big. He's athletic. He originally went into the portal, committed to the University of Georgia. I think
Georgia legend, baby.
Yeah, I think what happened is once he committed to Georgia, the news came out that Carson Beck was coming back. He said, "Well, let me put the brakes on this." Took a right turn, went out to the west coast out there, and ended up flipping into USC. I was excited whenever I saw that he was committed to Georgia because I'm like, man, this kid may come in and it may be really, really good. You're only going to be one play away from being the starter, or maybe, who knows. But he decided to go out there and play out on the West Coast, play with the USC. I really think that, first of all, you could be replacing probably the #1 pick in the NFL draft this year with Caleb Williams leaving. And with all the theatrics behind Caleb Williams, I still think the guy's an absolute insane quarterback, an insane player, fun to watch. I'm not really too big on some of his, some of the stuff that surrounds him. But as far as playing that football game, on the game, man, the kid, he gives everything he's got, and to replace that guy is going to be kind of tough. But we'll see what happens with this guy that transfers into USC. What do you think?
I think, just me personally, I'll say this right here. You cannot trust what you see in bowl games. You can't trust it. But I think Miller Moss has the leg up on him right now. Jaden Mayava, I think he needs to have a little bit more consistent completion percentage. He averaged 60% last year, 61, 62, or somewhere in there. But that was because he was either at 50 or 70. He could never stay in the middle. So a little bit too high highs and a little bit too low lows, and I don't think he could ever find level there. So if he can get a more consistent completion percentage and get some of those interceptions down, I know he had 10. That's not too many. Right. But if he can get some of those interceptions down, I think he could be a good quarterback. And if he has some potential, Lincoln Riley's going to get the best out of him. They're losing a lot of offensive production though, both in the backfield and the receivers. But I like Miller Moss just a little bit more right now. He only has 79 pass attempts, which is a limited sample, but he's 72% and 10.6 yards per attempt. So
Yeah, and just 17 touchdowns to 10 interceptions for UNLV last year. You know, if you can't start at quarterback, maybe you can go to the other side of the ball and be defensive back or something, because they're going to need some help on the defensive side of the ball.
and I think they may be getting it though. We'll see.
Yeah, they may be. We'll see. Hopefully, for their sake. All right, moving along. Michigan quarterback Alex, and I think it's pronounced Orji.
Yes.
Orji?
Alex Orji.
Yeah. He is a junior at Michigan. He's been on the team. He was on the team last year. Apparently, he was very impressive during the Michigan bowl reps. Very athletic guy, and going to probably get the opportunity this year to shine at quarterback for Michigan. I don't know how well they're going to. I don't know how good they're going to be. I know they're going to have. You know, they got an outstanding running back, and coming back with Edwards, Donovan Edwards coming back, who will probably be the feature back next year. Probably would have been a feature back if Blake Corum hadn't been there, or still, you know, was hurt. Because I mean, both those guys are great. But we'll see what happens with Michigan. Will, what do you think about?
If you like Alex Orji, it's because you think he's a great runner. You like track and field. He has only thrown, and to his credit, he completed it, but he has only thrown one pass in 2 years. But I mean, you know, they proved to us last year against Penn State they don't need to throw the ball.
I was about to say, he's thrown one more pass than McCarthy do in Penn State second half.
Maybe he gets the job. I know Jaden Davis is a little small. He's probably about Bryce Young size, and all that gets you is a Heisman. So I think Jaden Davis has some potential. So he may be competing for that job too. But and if you think that Alex Orji's got a shot there, he might. But I need to see something that's not, or that's more than just running the ball. Because if you throw and complete one pass in 2 years, I don't know what to see from you. And again, I don't think that J.J. McCarthy was absolutely stellar, but he was good enough to get the job done. And I don't know if anybody knows this. So this year, or in the past few weeks, make this quick, but people are talking about him moving up to a top 5 pick in the country. How do you think he did in 2022? Because we're talking about 2023 that were drafted. How do you think he did in 2022? Just your opinion. Like, how did he perform in 2022? Was it top 5 worthy?
So, J.J. McCarthy?
Yeah.
No,
not
at all.
His numbers were almost identical than they were this year.
Yeah.
Yep. Attempted 10 less passes. Now his completion percentage jumped by 8 points, but he attempted 10 less passes in 2022. He had roughly 180-ish less yards. I'm sorry, 280-ish less yards. Averaged about the same exact amount of touchdowns, and 1 less pick this past year. The rating was 12 points apart. He almost had the exact same season he did 2 years ago, but now he's a top 5 pick. I don't get it. Go ahead and waste your pick on it. I don't care.
I don't get that either. Yeah, I don't either.
All that to say, I don't think J.J. McCarthy's production is going to be difficult to replicate next year.
We got about 3.5 minutes left in the show, and we're not going to get to all 10, but we are going to get to 8 of them. The next 2 are really probably some of my 2 favorite players to watch this year. First one is, and you're going to hear this correctly, the 2018 recruiting class. This will be his 7th year as a college football player. Utah quarterback Cam Rising, who incidentally started off in Texas, and he started in Texas the same year that Lamar Jackson started his NFL career. Lamar Jackson's already had 2 NFL MVPs, and Cam Rising is still in college. 7th year in college, he missed 2023 due to an injury. So you go back and look at 2022 stats, and he's not bad. Listen, he's actually a dual threat quarterback. If his knee is healed up, which hopefully will be, he may be the Big 12 Player of the Year this year. Who knows? But or at least a Big 12 newcomer of the year. 2022 stats, he threw for over 3,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Cam Rising, we've talked about him over the last couple of years. What's your takes on Cam Rising?
So prepping for the show, I'll try and make this quick. Prepping for the show, I did a deeper dive on Cam Rising. How would you rank him if you said top whatever quarterback in the country? Where would you put him?
This year?
Or just
we have to base it on 2022. Oh man, I would say based on 2022 production and just assuming that his knee is completely healed up, I would say he's probably going to be somewhere around right now, if I had to guess right now, he would probably somewhere between 8 and 10, somewhere around there.
I looked at a few lists, and that's where they had him too. I hate to just drop this, and then we can't really dig into it. I will say this, and I think these two things are true. One, last year Utah might have made the playoff if he was healthy, and two, I think he is completely overrated. I think he is a good quarterback, top 10, no shot.
You say overrated. What is he rated?
I saw several lists, and he was between 9 and 11, at 8 and 11.
So you think he's going to be down around what, 13, 14?
He's not top 20. No, I don't think so. And again, I think that's a hot take. It might be. Hey, yell at me in the comments, go for it. But again, I think it is paradoxical, but true that, you know, if he plays last year, Utah might make the playoff, and also he's way overrated.
According to this article, those are the ones that are turning heads, and hopefully, for Cam Rising's sake and Utah's sake.
I mean, right now, I don't think he's the best. I don't think he's one of the two best quarterbacks in his own conference right now.
Okay. All right, and we're finally on the eighth one, and we'll just have to ignore the last two. But the eighth one is the aforementioned Jeremiah Smith, the #1 recruit in the nation for the 2024 recruiting cycle. The one that we had earlier talked about is compared to Julio Jones, 6'3", 215, highly recruited, exceptional speed. They call him silky smooth with great hands. I expect that you're going to see a lot out of this guy, some highlights of this guy. What do you think?
Oh, I expect it too. I mean, he was the #1 player in the country for a reason.
Right.
Like I said, if we talked about it a little bit earlier, if they can get something that resembles good quarterback play at Ohio State, better than Kyle McCord did last year, I think they're going to light it up because you still got Emeka Egbuka there, and then you're going to team up with Jeremiah Smith. I think that offense could be deadly.
Man, this hour goes by too fast, guys.
Always does.
Man. Okay. Well, we're at the end of the show right now, and guys, thanks for listening. You have been listening to the XL Sports Network College Football Drive at 5. We have been brought to you by the Steakhouse Restaurant in Hawkinsville. We'll see you guys next Thursday. Y'all have a great weekend.
conference. I don't know that they ever were as big as the SEC, but they're definitely falling off. So like I said, the concept is interesting. I believe it's 7 divisions. Well, they said they're going to take the top 70 teams.
Right.
I don't know how they determine that, but I think it's mostly the Power 4 now. I guess we're officially calling it.
Well, they said it was going to be all the teams from former Power 5 programs, plus SMU that just came into the
inclusion of SMU is curious to me, but I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
And then obviously Notre Dame and,
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, so a lot of the teams from the Power 4 conferences are going to be in that 70 teams that get split up into 7 10-team divisions. And I would just have to assume that those would be geographically separated.
That feels awfully like what we just came out of about
Sounds
2 years ago.
crazy like conferences to me, but you know.
Can't call them that, can't call them divisions, can't call them conferences, you gotta call them whatever.
But again, I have always been a supporter of that. I like the regionality of conferences because it really emphasizes the rivalries.
Yep.
I mean, like I said, Georgia and Ohio State, that'll be a great game to watch, but it's never going to be a rivalry, you know.
It may be a hated matchup because of just the recent history, but you're right. It's not, don't have the long-standing rivalry like Georgia, Auburn, or
Alabama, Michigan. Great game.
Alabama.
It's never going to become a rivalry.
Yeah.
Well, the rivalries are born of, I guess, the closeness there. I mean, there probably are rivalries of teams that are 1-2 states apart or maybe across the country, but the majority of them are either in-state or bordering state rivalries. You don't hardly ever see rivalries that happen, like I said, 6-7 states apart. It just usually doesn't happen.
Right.
So
Notre Dame's probably one of those exceptions. You know, they have
because they're an independent.
and then, you know, their big rival all those years was USC. You know, back in the day, actually,
Stanford.
they played. Stanford. But they also played Ohio State and Michigan every year too. And that was back, you know, up until they stopped playing those guys.
Yeah.
Those were big games, big rivalries.
Oh, yeah. So again, that's one thing I do like about this is they bring back some regionality, which again, I'm a big supporter of that because I think having Stanford in the Atlantic Coast Conference is bonkers. Having the University of California, Berkeley, in the Atlantic Coast Conference is bonkers to me.
Both of those schools can throw a rock in the Pacific Ocean.
Forgive me, I just think that's a little wild.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
And this is something you've tossed around before, and I think it's fun. The idea of relegation for teams, I think that would be really, really interesting because then they have something to play for. Not only are you playing for a national championship, but you're playing to stay where you're at.
Right.
Because if you don't, you may fall off.
That's like the Premier League in Europe soccer.
Yep.
Yeah, you don't want to finish in the bottom because you're going to drop down to that. In this case, you know, we would call it a group of 5, and if you're the top of the group of 5, you know, let's just say we just say there's somebody won it, you know, they would move up into the Power 5 division.
Yep. So again, back to how that was working. So it's going to be eight divisions. They said 7 of them will be the 10 teams of. The 10 teams split into 7 divisions from the 70 that they're keeping, and then the other 50. What would it be? 54 or so this next year would be. No, 64? I don't know, something to that effect. 50 or 60 teams. I guess, higher seeded, or the best producing ones out of that, they get to fill in that last 10-team, that 8-10-team division. And, you know, as those teams play, they get to, you know, the winner of that division goes on to play in a playoff game. And I guess losers obviously get relegated, winners move up. I don't know how exactly that would work to determine who falls and who comes up, but I do think that's an interesting concept. Again, it's fun, but like I said, this is an idea of an idea at best. I think this is years away from even getting off the ground because, like we said, if the SEC and the Big Ten aren't even entertaining it right now, it's not going to go anywhere. And also, like I said, you have TV rights that are done with, I think, ESPN from through like 2030. So get
ready to say that. That's really the big.
Those TV deals aren't going anywhere.
Well,
you got to see them out.
The biggest hurdle or the biggest, you know, pushing force behind this is going to be what, because I mean, guys, this, you know, now the TV deals are just billions.
Oh yeah,
this is the biggest billions and billions of dollars.
Especially for those 2 conferences, the Big Ten and the SEC.
Yeah. So I mean, each teams in those, you know, the SEC and the Big Ten are getting, I forget how much it is now, $30 or $40 million a year.
Enjoy it, Vanderbilt.
Yeah, exactly.
You're welcome.
Yeah, yeah. One reason why Vanderbilt would never leave the SEC unless somebody forced them out.
Nah, I wouldn't mind it.
Yeah.
And another thing that I don't know how I feel about it, but I know how I feel about doing with a playoff committee. So it would be, like I said, we have 8 divisions, and if I remember it correctly, it's 8 divisions. The winner of each division is an automatic lock to the playoff. Then you have 8 at-large wild card teams. I like the idea of doing away with the playoff committee because I think they've gotten a lot of stuff wrong. There's been several decisions, like this year was easy for the top 2 teams, I think. And then obviously 3 through 5 or 6 got a little messy. But I mean, the top 2 teams went to the national championship, the number 1 team won. So all in all, it kind of, came out the wash. The 2 years before that, you had Georgia, and I think they were leaps and bounds ahead of everyone 2 years ago. I'm sorry, I guess 2022, yeah, 2 years ago. But the other time they won it, it was Georgia and Alabama in there. So I think every year the best team has won it. I don't think there's ever been a time where it's like a team got left out that should have won the whole thing. I don't think it's ever happened, but just around the margins, like I said, FSU this year, I mean, that was, I don't know how that happened, and for something like this, it wouldn't happen, because, if a team goes undefeated in their division and they win it, they're going to be in. So there's less, I guess, debate about who should be with that stuff, and I think the wild card would work off like win percentage and stuff too. So taking the playoff committee out of it, I mean, it makes for good drama and good TV on a Tuesday night because there's nothing else to do, but but I don't know that it's a very fair way, I guess, like I said, for teams like FSU, because a lot of those people in those meetings, they're supposed to recuse themselves of certain discussion, or they're supposed to leave their bias at the door, but they never do. I mean, when you have athletic directors in there and the decisions they make directly impact the money their school makes, they can't be objective. It's impossible.
Exactly. I got an idea. Bring back the BCS and just have the 12-team playoff and top 12 teams of the BCS.
I don't think the BCS was ever broken.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I just need, the BCS instead of the top 2, top 4, run 1, 4, 2, 3 would have been fine for me.
Yeah, and the other thing about it, obviously, is the playoff would expand, I believe, under that system to 16 teams, and that's a little crazy, because if you have 80 teams competing for 16 spots, and right now you have 130, it's not actually 130, obviously, they all can't make it, but competing for 12 spots, that's, again, I don't think it's a perfect system, but it has some interesting ideas, and I think it would be fun to do some of them, so.
Up against the break, listen to the XL Sports Network, College Football Drive at 5. We are brought to you by the Steakhouse Restaurant in Hawkinsville, and we're coming to you live from the David Venable Studios in downtown Hawkinsville. Be back in 3 minutes, y'all. Stay tuned.
If you're near the 341